Good evening. Good and welcome to the monthly mystical live. I do forget that we're doing live. So yeah. So lovely. Oh, 7 of you already. Lovely to see you all. Not to see you. What am I supposed to say? Please put in the comments. What am I supposed to say to that? Because I'm not seeing you, am I? Anyway, right. How are you all? I hope you're all doing fabulous. I'll wait for a few more people just to jump on, just while I introduce our amazing guest this evening, Gary St. Michael Nottingham, who is he did the Welsh Occult Conference. He was the main person for that. He was he's an author of Liber Sigillum and many other books. So please go over to Amazon and have a look at that. And I will put a link in the description for at least one of his books. I don't know if I'm going to put them all down because there's lots of them. Very exciting. And we're going to have him on this evening. Just to say, if you haven't done already, please like and subscribe to our channel. It all helps, and it helps us to then carry on and do more of these amazing talks, because if nobody's watching, then there's no point. So we would like to get as many people as we certainly can to watch these videos, or to watch the lives even. So one more thing. I have to plug myself. I never plug myself. So I am the founder of the Magic Toolbox UK, and we make magical tools. We make everything from regalia to wands, or anything you want. So if you've got anything in specific, if you've got anything unique, anything like that, then please do give us a wee chat, and we can help you out there. There will also be a link to our website, hopefully in the description as well. Okay, let's get on with it, shall we? I know you're all biting at the chomping at the bit, I think is the word, isn't it? So let's crack on. Oh, hello. Aldiddy. Oh, don't know what that means. All diddly. Oh, all diddly good, thanks. Hi, Isum. Hope you're well. Anybody else, please say hello in the chat. That's always good. And I would like to check that that's working on there as well. We're actually here and going. So let me just pop it on there. Last few seconds. Oh, look, now, oh, it does work. Okay, let's come off of there then. Right. Just wanted to make sure it was working on there, because last time it wasn't. So now everybody can see the chat on the YouTube channel. My fault last time, because I didn't know you had to change it. So we're all in business. We're ready to go. Let's welcome to the stage Gary St. Nottingham. Yay! You know me, I'm a nutter. Right. Good evening, Gary.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Everybody gets to know me eventually. I'm a bit of a nutcase, but
no, I couldn't possibly comment on that, but I'll take your word.
It's all good. It's all good. I like just to be nice, cheerful, happy, and upbeat, so that it keeps the good energies up, right?
Certainly
so
does.
Right. I'm just going.
Carry on.
Go on.
Do you want me to go?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, folks. Thanks for having me here. Again, gluttons for punishment, no doubt. What I'm going to talk to you about is Mather's Key of Solomon, the Greater Key, or Greater Key of Solomon. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is for a couple of reasons, really. One is I know the work. I know it pretty well. Secondly, I've even had success with it, which is always encouraging. I think really since there's been more scholarly work done on the Solomonic grimoire cycles, Mather's seems to have been, well, I won't say forgotten about, but I mean, he's sort of been shunted to one side a little bit. And I'm quite a fan of Mather's Greater Key of Solomon. if you look at a lot of the other grimoires, and a lot of the other grimoires are being published, and grimoire material, Fred Hockley material, stuff that Stephen Skinner has published, and David Rankin and Joseph Peterson and what have you. You'll notice amongst all this grimoire material how very Christian they all are. And if you take, for example, the Heptameron, which I think was written somewhere around about 1300 thereabouts originally, again, is drawing very much on Catholicism. And of course, this was the religious mindset of the day, and it'll be expressed within the grimoire tradition. Mathers doesn't do this. Jesus doesn't get a mention. His mother Mary doesn't get a mention. None of the saints get a mention, but you'll find them all in the other grimoire material. Now, to me, if you were working with the other grimoire material and you were calling upon the deities of Christianity, then I think personally it would be a good thing if you actually went and took mass a couple of times a year, sort of plugged into the, how can I say, to the Christian sort of current mindset. Because, I mean, you're standing there invoking these Christian deities as part of your magical procedure. Whereas, you see, this doesn't happen with Mather's Key of Solomon. And I'm not a believer in Jesus as the guy who's going to save my soul. So, you know, I may as well be calling on Mickey Mouse, really, or Santa or somebody. So this is one of the reasons why I like Mather's work, because it's sort of, for me, it bypasses that. Others, no doubt, will have their own view, and fair enough. I'll leave it at that. So that's one of the reasons why I like Mather's work. When Mathers was putting his version of the Key of Solomon together, and he was consulting various manuscripts with some of the Solomonic material that survived in the British Library, Yeats, the poet who became a member of the Golden Dawn and at one point had a go at running it for a little while, he describes Mathers basically as this scruffy individual who's sitting in the library studying these occult manuscripts all day long, but he actually knew what he was on about, and he knew his way around the system. Mathers, of course, in some sense, had his own attitude problems with life and with people, as we can read about, but he actually he knew about magic, and that is the bit I'm actually rather quite interested in. So when he put together his version of the Key of Solomon from various manuscripts, he tells us that he'd corrected the Hebrew. A lot of it had been mangled, and he'd had the help of Wynne Westcott. And between them, they basically worked out the spelling, what it should be, or what they thought it should be. I think there was one or two things. I'm not a Hebrew scholar, but I know the letters, and I've used them as meditation aids working with the Tree of Life. So by and large, I do like to think I can recognize them, and I did think one or two of Mather's Hebrew words were wrong, but I defer to his judgment. He's the man, not me. But unless I get a Ouija board, I'm not going to be able to ask him. But so we'll leave that one. But he's given us a work which does work, basically, and yet it's in several parts. There's the little spelly things for stopping a sportsman killing game, hindering game, I think it says, and another one about becoming invisible and having magical garters and flying carpets and stuff. I must confess, so far I've not tried those. The area I've really been interested in is adapting some of his conjurations, and particularly all the seals of the planets. The seals of the planets, there's 44 of them, and if you've got 7 planets, I did wonder if there should not have been 49, and you'd had 7 for each planet. but some of the planets have got less than others. So like Mercury, I think it's only got 5, if I recall. So I have wondered about that, but that's just a minor point. And I want to get around to talking about the seals in due course. Now, the first part of the book, really, he's telling you how to create the magical circle. And he's telling you the magical circle that he suggests that you use, although, to be honest with you, it's not the only way to create a magical circle. And he's telling you about things like fasting, which we'll discuss a bit shortly. And what he's doing is, I think, making things a little bit more complicated than actually what it needs to be, because he's giving you conjuration after conjuration after conjuration, but he's not really telling you how to work with them, how to use them. And in some sense, I get a sense that he's writing the book for those who already know about magic, and it's not a book for just Joe Blogs to pick up off the shelf and think, I can do this. Because it's published, first of all, in October 1888. The Golden Dawn was launched in the spring, was it in March, 6 months prior. So he'd already really written the book for George Redway publishes it. Now, I suspect he'd written it for members of the Golden Dawn who were going to be going through the grades. Subsequently, I rather felt that he had prepared a work for those who would be coming on through the system. Because, as I say, there's stuff there that he's quite clearly, to my mind, not putting in the book. Which made me wonder really a bit about it, how usable it was, unless you actually had some sort of magical experience, really. So for ordinary people, well, I say ordinary people, people who are not particularly that up with magical terminology and practice, they might find it a bit overwhelming. I know I did a bit at 19, but these days at 68 is a bit different. So I wouldn't be disheartened with it. Mathers puts a lot of material in there, which I want to run through in a minute, which is generally useful for magic generally. And this work has gone on to influence other people. For example, Gerald Gardner lifted the idea of the knife with the black hilt, the famous Athame, which found its way, into Alexandrian Wicca and out into the wider world of paganism. Now everybody's got a knife with a black hilt. You know what I mean? But this is where it's actually come from. And the weird thing is, I came across somebody a little while ago dismissing and disparaging grimoires and the like. And then I thought, really, what your stuff that you're doing has been actually influenced by that which you are being dismissive about. But you know what it's like on the internet. It's probably best not to say too much. Someone's always going to leap down your throat saying you're being passive aggressive. You've only just said hello. It's a bit absurd, really. Anyway, I don't want to go down that route. But you all know what I'm on about. But Mathers, in his wisdom, has told us a lot about magic which we can adapt. And I want to run through some of this stuff. So what I want to start with, really, is where he starts telling us that we need to consecrate the pen and the ink and the parchment and the making of the book, because this is a text that you don't really think, oh well, I can just read stuff straight out of the book. Lazy person's approach to it. You do that, you're not connecting with it. You need to write this stuff out, because if you write it out, it sinks A, into your head, and B, you are making that personal connection, sacrifice, if you like, of your time and your effort, and it's all adding to your magical will, which, as I've said previously, your magical will is probably one of the most important magical tools you got in your magical toolbox. So, you know, that which improves and strengthens your magical will is good. So self-discipline. So whilst Mathers has adapted some material which looks to me as if it's come from the grimoire Verum about slaying an animal and flaying its skin and all the rest of it and making parchment out of it, well, Mathers was a vegetarian, so I think he was just sticking that bit in there really just to make it look as if he's trying to be authentic, I suppose. I don't know what he was doing with that, but anyway, park that on one side. That's not actually necessary. What I've done in the past is to go and get a book with some reasonable quality paper, you know, A4, those ones that are spiral bound with the wire. Take all the wire off it, and you've got all the paper. And the reason why I'm suggesting you do this is because once it's been consecrated, and we're going to have a look at that in a second, and you're writing what you're writing, if you can put it all back together and sew it all back together. Get some wool or something like that, and you could, because of all the holes, you know, you could sew it all back together, and you can put a leather cover on it, and you've made your own book. That's how I've done stuff, and that works fine. I'm not going to go and get them to show you, but that's how I've done magical books that I'm using, workbooks. That I find quite fine, because you see, if you made a mistake on a piece of paper, you can burn that instead of just ripping it up and binning it. You're better off you burn it because it's holy, and you can go and redo it. Whereas if you've got a book and you're writing in a book, you're stuck with your mistake really. But that's just a little point there. I found that quite a useful thing to do. And so if you're using books that got art quality paper, so you've got a decent bit of paper with a bit of weight in it, instead of something, you know, thin that goes through the printer, something that make a bit of an effort really is what I'm trying to say with it. And you can copy the material out that you actually need. Now, you can do a book like that, and you can consecrate the book. Now, Mathers has you consecrating it on a Wednesday in the hour of Mercury. Well, that's quite obvious, because you think Mercury, you know, you think things like communication, writing, text, books, that's all mercurial. But one thing you'll notice about Mathers' version of the Key of Solomon, he's encouraging you all the time to do stuff on a Wednesday in the hour of Mercury. And I thought about this for a while, and I thought, well, what's all that about? Because I thought I wouldn't have done it like that. And then some time ago, I was reading through Barrett's Magus, and Barrett happens to talk about conditions for successful magic. And he said, try to make sure that you've got a favorable Mercury. And I thought about it. I thought, what's he on about? I thought, of course, Mercury is the messenger of the gods. So Mercury is taking your vibe, say, up to higher realms, if you see what I mean. So he's running up to heaven with your requests, if you like, your magic, your petitions or whatever. So yeah, if Mercury is favorable, you're more likely to be successful. And this is one of the reasons why I've sort of nagged people about learning basics of astrology for successful magic. And it's something that's sort of become a bit of a poor cousin in modern magical, well, I would say revival, but really in some sense magic's always been around really. Because if you look at, say, Renaissance magic, you know, they would have known about astrology. They were heavily into astrology. You ain't got to look at something like the Picatrix. The grimoire, the Picatrix grimoire, magic in there only works if you get all the astrology lined up, which can be a bit complex. Trying to get all your ducks in a row. Sometimes if you wait too long, you might miss the opportunity. But point is, these guys knew about astrology. If you was working magic and grimoires and stuff like that, you would have known about astrology. Even like with Culpeper and herbalism, he knew about astrology quite extensively too. So this is something that's been sort of sidestepped in the modern era, and yet it's never been so easy to learn with all various programs of one hue of another to run off charts. You don't really have to get too bogged down with the maths of it all, but you could put a chart together in about 10-15 minutes. It wouldn't take that long. But anyway, I'm sort of going off the track a bit here. So Mather's, as I say, talking about the consecration of the paper. Next thing he's talking about, I want to talk to you, is how he's telling you to consecrate the pen and the ink and coloured inks and paints or anything. Well, again, he's suggesting you do this on a Wednesday and in the Mercury hour. On page 97 of his book, he's telling you to actually basically use a feather from a male goose. And well, we moved on a bit from there. I mean, you could do if you were that way inclined. If you brought a brand new pen which you kept solely for the art, you still use the wording that he uses to consecrate his feather that he's going to make his pen out of. Same with the ink. So if you had a pen with the ink in, then you obviously you're going to have to use both. So, and the point of consecrating this material, brand new, consecrated, is set aside from the everyday world. Now, if you think about it, if you look, say, like a surgeon in an operating theatre, he has a special room, as you would with your temple or your magical working space. He has special clothes, you know, with his gowns like you'd have yours. He has all his equipment, you know, the scalpels, the magical knife, and all the rest of it. He's studied and he knows what's on. He's clean, he's scrubbed up, and he's focused. It doesn't get mixed up with, you know, knives in the drawer, his scalpels at home and stuff like that. And it's this sort of approach you really need with your magical stuff, because you need to keep it separate from the everyday, focused, and because this is your intent, your magical will. So once we've got our magical pen and we've consecrated it as Mather's advises us to do, and the colors of the inks and all the rest of it, because it's got, you know, you can have your magical pen, you can have a dip pen or fountain pen that you can fill up as well and have 7 inks, and they're all consecrated. And the consecration is rather quite straightforward, really, because what he's doing, he's giving you the wording, and generally a lot of this consecration will consist of you reading various psalms over them. So if you're using bottles of ink, I take the top off so the ink can hear you, if you see what I mean. That's something that I've done. And then he goes on to advise you to consecrate the book. Now, once you've finished writing your book, and you're going to say to me, well, what do I write in there? So I'm going to come to that in a minute. He tells you to invoke the angels of the 7 planets, basically. And so you're going to do it on the planetary day, in their hour. First hour of sunrise would always be good, because it'll be the planetary hour of the day. And if you were to do that, then your book would be ready to go. Now, although in many respects that's one way of doing it. So what are we going to put in our book? Well, we'll put the seals, we'll put conjurations, we'll put anything else that we think that's relevant. We'll put all the bits and pieces that we're going to cover in a minute, so that we'll have a little working text of our own. And this work is adaptable. And I think people don't quite appreciate how adaptable it actually is. So what I want to do, I want to run through some of the things that he advises us to acquire for our art. And then I want to look at the planetary seals, and I want to talk a bit about some of those. And then we'll try and pull it together and look at some of the things that can be done or not be done, as the case may be. So as we covered the book, the next thing that he talks a lot of, we all know about, and he talks about, is the famous knife with the black hilt, which we have discussed. We got a picture there somewhere, folks. Keep going. Can we have the next one? Keep going. That's it. No. Back. Can we go back? That's it. Thank you. The knife with the black hilt. Let's just take a look at this a minute. If you look at the imagery on the handle, for example, we see this in the world of Wicca, where these sigils will turn up on the famous knife with the black hilt. And as it was explained to me, if you look at the bottom left, you have an S figure and something looks like a bit of a squiggle. It was explained to me that once you had your third degree, those two lines were joined together as a symbol thereof. How relevant that is just something in passing. But we can see various letters on there like Aleph, and we've got the crescent moons, and we've got Taurus on the end, and we've got Taurus with an arrow. And then we've got the symbol with the 8 paths, which I look at as, if you look at the Book of Shadows, they have the eight paths of magic, 8 ways to magic. And I think they've interpreted it from that, but that's neither here nor there. What I'm trying to say is, this is another example I'm on about how it's been actually influential, this work. And the idea where in the consecration of the knife, Mathers suggests that you dip it in the blood of a black cat and anoint it with hemlock, and it's made on a Saturday. I don't really see the relevance of that personally. I've forged knives for grimoire work myself in the past, and I've tried to get the astrology right with Mars, and I found that actually that in itself lent quite a lot of life to it. So it'd be quite possible to get a blade, carve a piece of wood, drill a hole into it, and bolt it all together, and actually make a knife of your own. Or if you've got an angle grinder, you get a bit of mild steel, you could shape up the blade and make a knife of your own. Well, it won't be super shiny like you might get from a shop somewhere, but at least it'd be yours. Nobody else will have one like you. So there's something to be said for making stuff. It does add to the vibe. But that's something to consider. Mathers also tells us about consecrating our candles. So the candles that we're using within our magic on our altar, again, you know, these need to be consecrated. And he's talking about if you're making candles from wax, and has to be done, of course, in the hour of Mercury, according to him, or you have a young girl making the wicks for you. And if you gone and brought the candles, have a check sometimes that you're not being conned with some of them. You go and buy a red candle or a black candle or whatever, and it's just the color on the outside. Try and get them with it's the same color all the way through. But they're quite easy to consecrate, the candles. If you're just using ordinary candles, you know, he has you reading Psalms over them, basically. Psalm 151, Psalm 103, Psalm 107. And you have various words to say, and you sprinkle them with consecrated water, which we're going to have a look at in a minute. And he gives you some wording to say when you light the candles, a blessing on the candles, that the light may illumine all, and all this. It's all setting it apart from the everyday, focusing the magical will. So it does have its role to play, which I find rather quite interesting, really. But one thing I wanted to bring to your attention was use of incense. Now, in magic, we all like to use incense of one sort or another, but really in magical use of incense, it's not a question of just burning an incense that you've made. As Leslie said to me, there'd be nothing but an air freshener You actually needs to be, a planetary incense needs to be put together when the moon's making a good aspect to the planet and in the planetary hour. And of course on a waxing moon, unless it's going to be something for banishing, then you want a waning moon. And it needs to be consecrated by having words said over it. So that sets it apart again. Now, Mathers gives you a form of words, which he calls the exorcism of the incense. And he tells you what to say and how to say it. But this is a point to remember. And it's the same when you're burning charcoal. Again, Mathers has you exercising the creature of fire, that the perfume from the incense that you're burning may rise accordingly. So he tells you what to say there and what to do. A bit loath about reading some of these names out. Not I'm superstitious. So this is something to take on board. Of course, the other thing that everybody likes are swords. Again, you could make a sword. I like the ones that the Solomonic ones with which we don't have a picture of because I forgot, with the blade with the hilt, the crescent lunar hilt. But again, they're not hard to consecrate. Basically, there's wording and there's psalms, and it's not a great deal to actually do. And he's telling us with our robe, for example, he's telling he gives us the wording to say to consecrate the robe. He's giving us the imagery to embroider on the robe, which can be a bit tricky, but it can be done. Mary was alive, my wife, she managed to do it on a white robe for me. If you've got patience, should be able to do it yourself, really. It's a bit of a cheat getting somebody else to do it. But I have to put out my hand on that one. But again, we're using psalms as part of the consecration. We have certain words to say when we're putting the robe on. He's telling us that, he says, take notice that if the linen garments were the vestments of the Levites or of the priests and have been used for holy things, that they would be all the better. Now, I'm not suggesting you go down to your Catholic church and try and steal the priests' robes out of the vestry. But what I will say, if you're that way inclined, you will find consecrated clerical kit. Sometimes you can find it on eBay. Secondly, you can find it in church supply shops. I was in Walsingham many years ago, which is, I don't know if any of you know Walsingham, over in Norfolk. It's a bit like Catholic Glastonbury, really. And there was a church supply shop that had some second-hand clerical bits and bobs, and I got this huge, heavy black wool cloak for, well, I won't say next to nothing, but it was damn sight more than what I paid for it. And I have come across, funnily enough, weirdly, a car boot sale over a place called Bridgenorth, which is on the east side of Shropshire, before it runs over to Wolverhampton and Staffordshire. And I was at a car boot sale, and this guy had a box of bits of clerical garb in there. And I thought, well, has this been nicked out of a church or whatever it was? And I thought this was a bit strange. And there was a couple of bits I brought for 50p. I thought I could use that. So stuff will turn up. But I've known people to get some nice bits of consecrated kit, if you like, off eBay. So stuff will turn up. You do need to keep your eyes open. But that's not actually a necessity, if anything. That's really, I suppose, just a bit of a fancy, really. So I wouldn't put too much weight on that. Some people might think, well, I'm abusing somebody else's religious vibe, which can be an argument. But I think really with a lot of this stuff, you're actually plugging into the current, and you're riding on the current, and there's been a lot of emotion pumped into these religions that's been going for thousands of years by millions of people. And it's like somewhere, I think, on the subtle levels, there's this huge reservoir of energy to sort of plug into. And I think that's, if you can, it's helping to sort of fire up one's magic, shall I say. But that's something to think about. Now, one of the things is the water and the salt. Oh, hang on. Go back to incense a minute. I forgot. There was something I wanted to bring to your attention before I move on, and that's he tells you what incense to use. Now, he's telling you here to create an incense on page 91 of frankincense, aloes, nutmeg, gum benjamin, which is benzo, musk, and other fragrant spices, over which thou shalt say the following words. Well, blah blah blah. That is a good one. I've done that. Made a big jar of it. That I find rather quite useful for the Solomonic type magic. And there's another one that he creates based on frankincense, mastic, and aloes for consecrating the planetary seals, which we'll get around to shortly. So there's a couple of incense formulas in there that are worth of note. He does not use neg bloody champa. So we'll give that one a skip. Now, you might be thinking, well, where am I going to work with this material? Now, Mathers tells us that really you need to be separated from the habitation of men, people, really. In many respects, that's not that straightforward. He talks about uninhabited regions, borders of lakes, forests, dark, obscure places, old and deserted houses, places where people never really go, caves, caverns, gardens, orchards, best of all, a crossroads where four roads meet during the depths of silence of the night, unless you get run over. But if you can't find any of these places, or it's not convenient, then you'll have to use your house. Even your own chamber, or indeed any place provided it has been purified and consecrated with the necessary ceremonies. So, in other words, the bottom line is you could use your bedsit, you could use your bedroom, you could use your front room. What you want is a bit of peace and quiet when you're not going to be disturbed. Clean up the litter, tidy stuff up, put things away, give it a good clean. That would be a good thing. I mean, we'd all like to have a ruined castle we can all go and faff around in. But you know, we've got to be realistic about this. So at home will be fine. And then we're talking about magical circles. Well, again, Mathers has some complex circles which we're going to have a look at. Could we have the circles up, please? Keep, and the other way. That's it. Well, here's his circle for making consecrating the pentacles, but it's not really that relevant because he tells you to use what name he thinks relevant for the working. But could we have the next one up, please? The next circle. That was right. Okay. Well, I tried to do. I was rushing when I was doing this, and I should have took a bit more time and just sort of scanned in the bottom one, which is the really one I wanted to bring to your attention, running the squares and that. Yeah, it looks impressive, but how relevant is it? If we look at the circle in the middle, in the outer circle, you can see in the east, there's two triangles. The apex of the one is sticking into the bottom of the other. If we go round to the right, we've got the hexagram. If we go round to the bottom, we've got two triangles point to point. Then we got on the left two triangles, the wide ends joined together. Now bring that to your attention, because those of you who are in particularly the Golden Dawn or are familiar with Golden Dawn material, you will see those in the hexagram rituals, and that's where I suggest Mather's lifted that from. He's obviously probably thought, aha, I know what I can do with those, and that's what he's done. So again, you know, this material it has influenced a lot of the magical tradition that we all know and love so well. And then we see in those circles we see various Hebrew. We got the tetragrammaton on the top right. Then on the top left is Aleph Lamek Hey. I'm not sure if he's trying to say Elohim, but if he is, he's got something wrong there. And then it's I can't read that one. It's upside down. Nor the other one. I can't read that upside down. I should have looked at them a bit more properly. But anyway, that's by the by. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because this is where, as I say, Mather's had the brilliant idea of the lesser hexagram ritual, and he's used these images there, as we can see. Now, having told us what we can do and where we can do it, I just want to wrap up a bit about circles, because really your circle is going to be as big as you can make it, the space that's available. So I wouldn't get too bogged down in it's got to be 9 foot. If it can be, I think that's quite ideal. I remember being told in the old days from my original teacher that because I said to her about the 9 foot thing, and she reckoned that it was how far a human aura would stretch out if you put your hands out both ways. So basically you would be drawing a circle around the periphery of your, sort of say, psychic being, if you like. But instead of creating this circle on the floor, why don't we visualize it and consecrate it with those names, if you see what I mean? So if we're starting in the east, we could draw those two triangles and visualize them. We could then, as we move around, we could say, you know, I conjure thee, circle of power by the might and holy divine names of God, and then we do the next name, and we go on all the way around. Just a thought. So we could call upon those names, or we could set it all up on the floor like this, because Mather's has you consecrating it by using psalms. Psalms are used a lot in this text, and having, whether we visualize the circle and invoke those names and what have you, we would still use the psalms that he gives us right in the very, very beginning, where he tells us to use Psalms 2, Psalms 54, 113, 67, 47, and 48. So there's a lot of Psalms there to be said, really. Some are more shorter than others, I know, but it's all focused in the magical intent. And then he gives us the prayers to use, that when we enter herein with all humility, let God the Almighty One enter into the circle, and let all demons fly from this place, especially those who are opposed unto this work, and let the angels of peace assist and protect this circle, from which let discord and strife fly and depart. Now again, you see, we could adapt that wording generally and use it as a house blessing, if you think about it. That's quite simple. So there is, if you read this text and study it a bit, you will see where you can adapt stuff for other workings. Now, one of the things I was going to talk to you about was his consecration of the water and of the salt. Again, he's using psalms, and one of the things here is he says exorcism of the water. I exercise the creature of water, and then blah blah blah. But he goes on to say, and I cast out from me all the impurities, uncleanness of the spirit of the world, and phantasm. Now, this is the wording that you'll see that's adapted into the Book of Shadows. So again, when Gardner was confecting the Book of Shadows with the aid of Doreen Valiente, somebody had the bright idea of raiding this and adapting it. So it's influenced what these guys were on about. So one of the big things, of course, is the use of hyssop as a purification. Purge me with hyssop, O Lord, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Hyssop's quite easy to grow, perennial, has this nice blue flower that the bees all like. And Mathers has you making this aspergillum, if you like, where you sprinkle the water, the holy water, and he has various herbs which he uses, and if you can't get them, a sprig of hyssop is ideal. So he has, we think he has vervain, valerian, sage, rosemary, hyssop, marjoram. I said rosemary, didn't I? Basil. There's another couple I can't think of off the top of my head. But anyway, you can read about them in the book, in the text. One of the things that's also quite important is behavior. And on page 77 in book 2, chapter 3, he has a whole chapter about how one ought to regulate and govern oneself. And he's telling you basically to avoid anything that's distracting to the success of the work. So he's not really going to approve of people wasting time on Facebook or binge watching Netflix. He's going to want you to sort of focus on the work, really. Cutting out trivia out of one's life. Again, he's talking about changing diets. So really, he's really looking at you being a vegetarian and eating quite simply, preferably not eating anything of animal origin. So pretty much like a vegan, I suppose. That would be ideal in Mathers' world, working with this. Again, these are things that sort of help focus the intent. Fasting in the sense of not actually eating anything, 24 hours isn't too bad. That's quite doable. I remember years ago I did do a 3-day fast, and that was a bit of a slog, I don't mind admitting. Especially day 2. That was pretty difficult, but toughed it out. Just fill up on water, really. So we've covered Mathers' approaches here, and I want to have a look now at the seals. So could we go on to the first seal, please? Keep going. That'll do. Hang on. Go back. Go back again. That's it. Fine. That's it. That's the one. That's the one. Now here is the first seal of the moon. Now, what I've done, I haven't put all the seals on here tonight. As I say, I've cherry picked some of them, and there's a reason why I've done that. Because the first seal and of each, apart from Saturn and the Sun, the first seals of the planets will be the ones that will aid you in working with the angels and the spirits of these seals. It's almost like as if it's the gatekeeper. When I read what he says about the moon, the first pentacle of the moon, which is what this is, this and the following serve to call forth and invoke the spirits of the moon, and it further serveth to open doors in whatever way they may be fastened. Then he turns around and tells you that in the middle is the tetragrammaton, and the right hand various other names, and on the left hand are the names of the angels. So on the left we have the names of the angels that are associated with this. The bottom left to be Shoiel. Second from the bottom on the left would be Veol. The one above that is Yashiel, and the top one on the left is Vahil. Now these four angels are the angels that are invoked using this seal. And there's a particular verse from Psalm 107 where he says, he has broken the gates of brass and smitten the bars of iron in sunder. It does sound more impressive if you use Latin, which isn't too hard to do. If you've got a psalm book of Psalms, you know, one's sort of got English one side, Latin the other, or do it on Google. It's not a hard thing to do these days. I think these angels and spirits are quite versed in various languages from what I can see. So this is an important seal, and I'm suggesting that this is consecrated if you are working with lunar spirits. In fact, more than that, I think that you could wear it as a layman on your chest when you are working with lunar spirits. You could engrave it on silver, you could etch it on silver, or you could sort of have it on a quality piece of paper, parchment, and wear it as a layman. Have it present, or even if it's just on the altar, and invoke these angels to help you when you are invoking the other angels of the moon. Now, he says here that it serveth to open doors in whatever way they may be fastened. Now, how are you going to work with this? You could work with it really, candle magic. You know, you got the moon well aspected, say like in Cancer, waxing moon, lunar hour, full moon, or whatever. We could write an invocation, call upon these angels, these four angels to assist us. We could use candle magic, as I say, and stand the candle on the seal. We could do this, say, 3 times. Well, you could do it 9 really, but if we did it, say, 3 times, you know, every lunar hour, over a 24-hour period, then it's like hammering a nail into a piece of wood. You're not doing it in one blow, you're doing it in a series of blows, and we are sort of chipping away at it, trying to build up a current ahead of steam. That I've found works and will work well, especially if this has been consecrated, as I say, prior. Now, I was going to tell you, we talk about all these things about magic, but actually, does anybody ever do anything? Does anything ever happen? When we go back to when we had COVID and we had the lockdown and all the rest of it, someone I knew was homeless and they were getting no help, and they were being faffed around and told to ring numbers, and nobody's there to answer the telephone and all the rest of it. And they were in a bit of a state, and they had no money. And I sent them the money. I said, get to Shrewsbury on the train, and I'll come up and pick you and put one of them COVID masks on. So I brought them back down, and I stuck them in the garden in a tent. And I said, right, we'll try and find somewhere to live. And what happened, of course, he's a homeless chap, no money, no job, no nothing. I've got hope in hell of finding anywhere to bloody live. No one's going to take this character on. So I used this, and I used these angels, that they open doors in whatever way they may be fastened, that Joe Bloggs may find a home to his liking. Well, about a week, 10 days later, he is charging off, making an application for a couple of flats. No, one flat it was, in this little block up country where he wanted to go. So he goes up there, and then he rings me and he says, "Oh, I've just been offered 2 flats." He said, "One's number 4 and one's number 9. What do you think I ought to take?" And I say, "Take bloody number 9. Number 9, of course, being the number of the moon. So that worked out. And I thought, if I hadn't done this, I couldn't see how this guy was going to get anywhere to live. And so it all fell into place when and the landlord took him on. So that was really quite weird. So I like magic that has happy endings to it, and people's problems get solved, because we can all be touchy-feely and think, "Oh, this is wonderful," and I'm all for it. It's great stuff. But sometimes stuff has to be done, and we want it done. And that was an example of successful use of this. So I was well pleased with that. So, as I say, things will happen. If we can go on to the next seal, please. Now, again, this is the first seal of no, hang on, that's it. This is the first seal of Mercury. He tells us that it serves to invoke the spirits who are under the firmament, and that the spirits and the angels, he gives us their names, who are attached to the seal. So again, this is mercurial. We could consecrate this when the moon makes good aspect to Mercury, or in one of Mercury's signs like Gemini or Virgo, and we use the Mercury hour, and we could invoke these angels to bless this seal, and that the energies of Mercury would be attentive to us when we call upon them. How would we do this? As I say, we could certainly use candle magic, make it quite, I say simple, but we could use candle magic. We could actually, if our sense of the art demands, use conjuration and call these angels into a triangle, which we've marked out. We call them into a showstone. There's another one. So there are modes of approaching this, some more complex, as I say, than others. Conjuration is rather quite a complex skill, discipline. Candle magic, which I must confess, in my older age, after years of conjuration, I'm starting to slip back into using candle magic because I find it so bloody convenient. So nothing wrong with that. I don't know if it's just old age or just laziness. As long as it works, who cares? So let's move on, please, to the next seal. Now this should be Venus. This is the first seal of Venus. That's right, yes. And he says there that this serves to control the spirits of Venus, especially those who are written around it. And then he gives us the names of the angels: Nogahil, Achalaya, Sakadaya, and Angeriel. Now, interesting point about this. If you take the first angel's name, Nogahil, there is a system with a lot of this, where if you take the Hebrew names of the planet, in this case, Noga is the Hebrew name for Venus, I understand. And if we put El on the end, that will give us the name of the angel. So if we take like Mars, Madim, put el on the end, is Mademiel, which we'll have a look at when we get there. But another point I want to bring to your attention: if you take the angel, there's a couple of angels here, Achalaya and Sokadaya. Now we can work these out. The top one is Nangeriel, because the first letter looks like Nun to me, whereas the one on the left is Achalaya, and then the bottom one would be Sokadaya, and the one on the right is Nangeriel. Now, bring this to your attention, because if you look at the two angels, Achalaya and Sokadaya, they end in IAH. Now, angels that end in IAH in their name will be angels that are sitting down, that are throned. Angels that end EL will be standing and they're winged. Now, the names ending IAH, as I understand it, are from Greek. So we now got a seal that's got angelic names that are, some are Hebrew, some are Greek origin. Now I'm wondering whether this gives us a clue actually to where some of this material comes from, because if we go back to Alexandria, 1st, 2nd century AD, we've got a culture here that's Jewish. We've got a culture also that's Greek, and we've got this mixture of the two, particularly as I understand it within the magical thinking. So I am wondering whether, if you take Achalaya, is a Greek name for a particular Venusian spirit, whereas you say Nogahale is a Jewish name for a Venusian spirit. And I'm wondering whether these seals, in that sense, came out of that culture, or those angels did, because the figures that you see around it, the shapes on the spokes of the wheel, they're from geomancy. If you go to geomancy, which people know basically as a divinationary system, there's another system with geomancy where they can be used for magic. And those seals, those figures, 16 geomantic figures, can be used to generate various shapes. There's a way of doing it, and these are from the Venusian ones. So whoever put this together has used that and used these angels. Whether, as Mathers would like to tell us, that he saw no reason why King Solomon couldn't have created all this, I think that's extremely unlikely. So, could we move on, please? Because the next seal I want to have a look at, this is the second seal from the sun. It's not the first. This seal, Mathers tells us, represses the pride and the arrogance of solar spirits and is to be used in their conjuration. And again, he gives us the name Shemeshiel, Pyamohia, Rekhodia, and Malachiel. And again, we have angels that end in with Greek endings, and angels have a Jewish ending. Shemeshiel is come from the Hebrew word Shemesh for the sun. Somebody, as I say, stuck EL on the end, created a new name. Could we move on, please, to right, we're on Mars. Right, okay. Here's Mars, first pentacle of Mars, proper invoking the spirits of the nature of Mars, especially those who are written around the pentacle. And again, we get the names Mademiel, which I mentioned to you. That's the one on the top left, I think, yes. And Botsachia, Sheol, and Ethereal, written in Hebrew around the pentacle. Now, again, if this was consecrated when the moon was making a good aspect to Mars, and we did it in the martial hour, and we'd have that as our talisman, if you like, our phylactery, if we want to wear it on our robe, on our chest, or simply have it on the altar when we're working with martial spirits. And we call upon these angels to aid us, particularly with the working. And if we were working with any of the other seals of Mars that are in the book, which I don't have pictures of really, maybe I should have put a few of them in, but anyway, we didn't. It was the first seals I wanted to bring to your attention. Could we move on, please? Now, this is a seal of Jupiter, and you will notice on the top left spoke of the wheel, we have the symbol for Saturn. I've always been a bit suspicious of this, and I've been wondering, well, what is the symbol for Saturn doing on here? And you'll see this. You'll see this on every version of this, except for I did find a French version of this that actually had the planetary seal of Jupiter on there instead, which I thought was more accurate, which is basically a circle with a diagonal cross in there. But I'll just bring that to your attention. And again, the first pentacle of Jupiter serves to invoke those spirits of Jupiter, especially those whose names are written around here. It's good for finding treasure, teaches you how to become possessor of places. Now, of course, you could draw this, consecrate it, put it on your metal detector, and off you go. But he gives us the names of the angels, and again, you know, mixture of Hebrew and Greek endings. Could we move on, please? Right, hang on a minute. Yes, this is the third pentacle of Saturn, and again, I think the order is a bit wrong, some of these, because I think this one should be the first one, because it's good for invoking the spirits of the nature of Saturn, making them a bit more easier to deal with. And as I say, I see these ones as being like doorkeepers to the others. And again, it gives us the angelic names, mixture of Greek and Hebrew, as I say. Could we move on, please? And here is an old temple in mid Wales, which has now been closed down because I don't live there anymore. It's something I built a long time ago. Big flagstone floor, just to show that this stuff actually does get done. We got the circle. The inner circle has well, I took the idea from the Lesser Key of Solomon, where you have that circle with the snake, and you have all the names off the Tree of Life. Well, down to Yesod anyway. And I put the whole 10 down to Malkuth in here, and it's in celestial script. It took a bit of working out trying to get them all in, but we got there in the end. And then you have the outer circle, which we put the names in that are relevant for the working. So if you were to be working, say, with solar energies or something, then the names covering the solar energies would be used. Tipperus, really, god name, archangel, angel, that sort of thing. And Shemesh, the sun, because if you look at the Kabbalah, you come down the four worlds. There's like a pecking order. So if I was to work with, say, the solar spirits out of the Key of Solomon, I would be putting those names around that circle, and I would be calling upon them as part of the conjuration and of the consecration of the circle. Could we have the next one, please? Yeah, the idea of the candles here in this triangle, I'm just going to show you. There's a workbook there with a sword on it. Couple of things. The idea of the candles in the triangle is to give some energy to the spirit they're endeavoring to sort of work with. That's what they're about. Now, the sword used to belong to my old teacher, Rosemary Bruce, or Roz, who'd been part of Alexander's Notting Hill set in late 60s, early 70s. He moved down to Shropshire. I think I might have mentioned this at some point in some talk somewhere. When I was a kid of 15, a village of 600 people, and I'm interested in magic, and she turns up. Rather quite strange, but that's what happened. That was her magical sword. So that's had a working life of over 50 years now. There's a handwritten text there, what we've been talking about. So just to show the stuff does actually happen. So there you go. And I think, folks, whilst we could talk about this stuff all night, and as Solomon tells us, he says, I order thee not to bury this science, but to make thy friends partakers in the same. Subject, however, to the strict command never to profane the things which are divine. And with that, we'll leave it at that.
Wow, that was brilliant. Thank you so much, Gary. Right, we got a couple of questions I need to put up to you that I couldn't answer. Where are we? Look at the old.
Well, I'm doing my best.
I think they're good. I've got to find them now. Hang on. Kiss. There was a few things that was said during the thing where you can just have a look later. But there we are. Right, back. Thanks. Kiss. May I point out? Here we are. 20. There we go. That was the first one. So you can see that right in your end.
Very good. That is very good. Did Mathers make it all up, or has it come from elsewhere? Is how I'm reading that. Well, I think Mathers first of all had a skill for creating magical works, although Wynne Westcott, of course, had a big hand in creating the Golden Dawn too, but everyone thinks of Mathers really. But to go back to what you're asking here, Stephen Skinner says in the one work they published, Hygromantia, he says that it was the foundation of the material that became the Key of Solomon. Well, that's Greek, and that goes back down, I think, somewhere around the 2nd century AD. He does point out in there they create a knife with a black hilt, which is something that comes into Mathers' Key of Solomon. So it seems to me that some of this material has certainly been around for a good while. And I think Mathers really, he did, shall I say, a creative approach to some of this. Because if you look at, say, Fred Hockley and Solomonic material that he produced, the seals are different. There's a lot of different seals in there, but the approach is different. It's very Christian, and the approach also is done on the days of the week. So they start on a Sunday, end on a Saturday, whereas Mathers has gone down on the tree. The Chaldean order starts on Saturday, Saturn, Bina, and then all the way down, Jupiter and Mars, all the rest of it down to Luna. So he's taken a different approach. That I don't think is done anywhere else. So yeah, that's a Mathers creation for sure. He does say he's left some material because he thought it was dubious. So he has put his interpretation in that sense. So in some sense, yeah, I don't think that's an unreasonable phrase to say it is, creative noodling by Mathers. I think there's an element of that in there, that's for sure. I wouldn't say I don't think we can turn around and say it's all Mathers doing. I think he certainly interpreted and adapted material that he's found in other manuscripts and various archives and things in the British Library. Because, of course, he did go on to write up the Abramelin when he got to Paris, did he not? So he was a man for this, for sure. He knew his way around it.
Yeah. I think there's another one. I think, is that a question? I wasn't sure. I'm not even sure where that was.
Song 2 that consecrates, right? Okay. Well, again, Psalms and magic. I don't think people appreciate the importance of Psalms in magical context. If you go back to, let me think, Agrippa. Now, Agrippa tells you that if you look at these Psalms and if you took a verse out of one of these Psalms that you're particularly interested in working with and you converted it into Hebrew, you took the first letter of each word, you could create the name of the angel of that particular verse. So, you take the 23rd Psalm where it starts off, Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Turn that into Hebrew, take the first letters out of it, we can make the name of the angel, and we could use that verse as part of the invocation. And of course, you could use Mather's rose cross with the 22 petals and create the sigil. So it's all there. You're just limited by your imagination in many respects. So Psalms, I think, are useful. Could we think 91st Psalm, good protective Psalm? Use that when we've been working with Lesser Key, the Goetia rituals as part of the consecration of the circle. And they all turn up in purification rites and what have you. So
we were saying Psalms every day when we were doing the Abramelin because it was part of it was because it was also something to fill the prayers with. It's very difficult trying to make up your own prayer. Let me tell you, that's really hard.
It's interesting you say that because, as I recall, not personally, but reading that when Edward Kelly is being instructed by, I think it was Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel,
right? Yeah,
make prayers, and he asks him, the angel, whether they do the prayers for him, and he said it has to come from the heart of man.
Yeah. And it's the hardest thing ever. It is so hard because it's like literally even when you're doing it yourself, it's the hardest thing. I don't know. Or it was for me anyway. I don't know. Maybe it was just me. I found it extremely difficult to sit there and you're like, because it's not natural anyway. You don't, you're not naturally going to start chanting prayers, are you? So to say, well, you have to do this now, you're like, what?
Focuses intent. Although going back to Kelly, he didn't have the temerity to ask the angels if they could lend him £100 for a fortnight. So practical, and they said, and they said, I think it was it Harvey? I can't remember which one it was now. And he says, I have no need for such things, for I have swept them all from my door. Kelly trying it on there, I think.
Oh yes, yeah. I can imagine. You can imagine what he was like, can't you? He's like a bit of a rogue, really. There we go. Another one. That was from the previous question. This thank you.
Well, I think a key to a lot of this is looking at what you say, the Renaissance writers. There is a lot to be learned from these guys. and we can look at, of course, people like Agrippa and what was happening in Italy with Pico, and the other guy, Facchino, Mirandola. I mean, because they were setting up these basic occult schools, calling them academies, and teaching what they called natural magic. And they set one up in Rome, but the Pope closed it down. God knows why they went to Rome with it. It's asking for trouble. But so yeah, I again, this is one of these areas I think where there's influenced this magical current. If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So if I was to start tomorrow, if I was a newbie and I just found this video tonight,
Okay.
what would be the first thing that I would do if I was like, oh, I'm really interested in this. What would I do? What was the first thing that I would have to do?
First thing would be to go and buy a copy of The Key of Solomon by Samuel Liddel McGregor Mathers.
Yes.
And the second thing to do would be to sit down and read it.
Read it. And then what?
Then I would be thinking, I'd digest it a bit, I'd think about this, and I'd go back and I would try to get into, how can I say, I try to work out, follow how he's worked out things like Hebrew names in seals. Might find it a bit complicated, but it's not really. And I try to follow things, because why I'm saying this is because it becomes part of the warp and weft of one's own psyche, and it's part of tuning into it.
Yeah.
And I'd be thinking to myself, well, I'm interested in this. How am I going to get it to work? I would think to myself, as I say, I would start and I'd consecrate my paper and make my book, and I consecrate my pen and I consecrate my ink, and I'd write these seals out like he gives me, and I'd be studying at the same time about how is he consecrating the knife with the black hilt, what's he doing with this, what's he doing that, can I gather these bits of incense together? Then I'd be consecrating my incense and the little bits and pieces that he advises me to have, and I'd be meditating on these planets, on a regular basis, trying to endeavor to plug into their energies and harmonize with them a bit, because I don't want to be sort of looking at me and thinking, who the hell's this? You know what I mean? So if you've got a familiarity, I wasn't going to say a background, but if you've got familiarity with Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, I think that would be a big help, personally.
Yeah.
I think that would be a big help. It's not that fashionable in some quarters, but I think it's got a lot to offer magically.
For sure. Yeah.
Personally, I've got a lot out of it over the years. So if I was to be working, say, with a particular planet, I'd be using the god name, archangel, angel, from the relevant Sephira. Whereas you see, if you were familiar with those Sephiras and you've done a series of meditations on a regular basis, and more than once, working with God forms and the names and the imagery and the paths and all the rest of it, when you call upon them, they know who you are.
Yeah.
You're plugged into it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that is something I've encouraged other people when I run training in the training groups and things. You need to explore this. This is where things like Regardie's middle pillar is useful.
Yes.
And then you could be flooding your aura with the relevant planetary color, and then as an endeavor to work with the energy of that planet. In fact, you could be, if you want to be super clever, use the God name image, the absolute image, and then and use the God name really that you try to endeavor to identify with, because then it becomes the God image that's then doing the planetary working, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
You're doing it in their name, so why would it fail? You know, it's going to flow. So what it should do.
That's true. Yeah, that's
So,
true.
you know, for me, Mather's Tree of Life, Mather's Key of Solomon ties in with the Tree of Life and the Kabbalah.
It all does. Everything links together, really, doesn't it?
It does all link together. You're right in what you say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In one way or another. Very
Very much so.
surprisingly.
Well, as I
So,
said,
anybody? Sorry. Oh, carry on.
no, that's it. Carry on.
Anybody got any more questions? Please do comment in the chat. Like in the next 10 seconds. Or we will. Oh, hang on. Let me just. More question. All of Gary's books on Amazon. I've literally put the two that we talked about tonight. I've already, as we were talking, I've already put them on the description below, so you can quickly link onto the Amazon there straight away. As soon as this is finished, you can quickly link onto that and buy Gary's book. Please do, because his books are amazing. Hang on, any more questions? I'm trying to finish writing. Can't do more than 2 things at once anymore. Not this time of night. I'm good in the morning. Not this time of night. This is like bedtime.
Yeah, morning's the best time of the day.
Yeah, see, I need to be doing that. It's a shame nobody wants to chat in the morning, isn't it? Because I'd be well away. But I will be doing lots of chats, and they'll be in the morning when I do my lives. Right, so look out for that, by the way, everyone. I am going to be chatting. I've just got to get the bottle to do it on my own. It's hard.
Oh,
5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, nice meeting folk this evening. Oh, yeah, I'll just put it up here. There we go. Put it up on the thing. There we go.
And
nice
thanks
meeting
for
folk this
all those
evening.
that come along.
Yes, thank you for that. That was lovely. It was you made some lovely conversations there this evening. Thank you so much.
Okay.
It's always welcome, and we love all the chat, don't we?
We do.
So, right, okay, we'll give it an end then. Thank you so much, Gary, again for joining us, and I'm hoping
Oh, we seem to have died.
hold on. It's only on my computer. It's not happening for you guys because I can see it over there. Okay, There we are. All right. Thank you so much, Gary. We'll see you again soon, I hope. And if not, I'll chat to you anyway about something.
I'm sure. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye, Gary.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Well, that was amazing, right? That was having trouble connecting. I don't know what's going on with my computer. It's not obviously not happening with anybody else, but hey ho, never mind. Right. I hope you had a fabulous evening. That was so amazing, very exciting, and I'm off to go and read the Key of Solomon again because I didn't really read it properly the first time. So I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. I'm not one of those. I have to really be into something to get it going, but I'm going to do it now this time. Thank you so much all for joining us this evening. Please do like this live, comment in the little description, tell me what you thought of this evening, and subscribe to our channel, please, because we need to get those subscriptions up. We need to get up and running so that more people can see us. We need to get everybody up and running so that more people will come and chat with us and we can have a good time. And it will give you more magical information and everybody will get everything and they will get something. Everybody's going to be happy at the end, aren't they? So please do tell your friends, tell whoever, just to come and join the Magic Toolbox UK on YouTube. And don't forget that we do have a website. We do sell stuff, so please do go and have a look at the Magic Toolbox UK.com. We sell some amazing gear, by the way, and anything you want. That's our ethos. Thank you so much. Hi, Gail. Subscribe. Thank you so much. Yes, anybody, please do subscribe and join us, because if it isn't for you lot, we don't have a channel. So please do help us and subscribe and bring this channel up and show the magical world who we are. Yeah, we need to blossom. We need to blossom as a family. I'm rabbiting, aren't I? As I always do. I go on and on. I could go on all night. Anyway, thank you so much. And look out for me. I am going to get on here and talk some of my stuff. It's just, I look at it and I go, I don't know why, because I'm sitting here talking to you now. So if you'd like me to talk to you about some stuff that I know, then please do share it in the comments and give me a thumbs up or something so that I can get a bit of confidence to do that. That would be great. I'll speak to you all soon and have a lovely evening. Thank you so much from the Magic Toolbox UK, and we'll see you all soon. Oh, thank you, Isam. Yay! See, now you've just inspired me to go for it. Thank you so much. Yay! Okay, right. I'm going to go now because, yeah, I'm rabbiting and talking rubbish as usual, but you love me. I know you do. This is how I roll. All right. I'll see you all soon. Have a lovely, 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 lovely evening. And thank you so much. Oh, and don't forget, if you've already subscribed, then there's one coming up on the 19th of this month. And it's all about Mary Magdalene, saint or sinner. Now, that'll be a really interesting one to watch. So please do subscribe. And also, if you look underneath, there's a little thing that says notify me. So if you click on that, it tells you when it's coming up. And then there's another one on I think there's another one on the 20-something of June. Which is it? And that one, you've probably seen it already somewhere. But in case you haven't, that one is, Steve Mitchell. Yes. And now he's talking about the skull. And it's I'm like, that's intriguing. Very intriguing. So, yeah, we'll have a bit of that. He's talking about, I don't really know, but it's a really exciting, the something of the skull. Okay. Yeah, but really cool. I'm off. Right. Love to you all. See you all soon. Love and light. Bye for now. I'm off.